Every explosion you've ever seen in a movie is a lie. And I don't mean exaggerated, I mean completely, totally false. Every space battle, every planet cracking apart, every Death Star, that deep boom that shakes the theater seats, none of that happens. Not faintly, not too quiet to notice if you strain your ears. Zero sound, absolute silence, even if you were close enough to watch the fireball in perfect, terrifying detail. So here's the question I want you to actually sit with, because most people just shrug and say, well, space is empty, and move on. If silence out there is that total, that non-negotiable, what does that tell you about what sound actually is? Not what it sounds like, what it is physically underneath the word. Because I think most of us walk around assuming sound travels the way light does. Something happens, and the sound of it goes flying outward the same way the flash of light does, and eventually reaches your ear. That's the picture in your head, isn't it? It's wrong. And it's wrong in a way that's actually kind of beautiful once you see it clearly. Sound isn't a thing that leaves an object. Sound is a disturbance moving through a material. Clap your hands right now. Go ahead. Actually do it. You didn't just send clap out into the room. You slammed a bunch of air molecules together in front of your palms. Those molecules bumped into their neighbors. Those neighbors bumped into their neighbors. And on, a chain reaction rippling outward, like a row of dominoes falling one after another, until eventually that ripple reaches somebody's eardrum and physically shakes it. That shake, that mechanical little tap on a stretched membrane in your ear, that's what you're calling sound. It was never a thing traveling from your hands. It was air, passing a message to itself, one molecule at a time. And if there's no air, if there's nothing there to be the first domino, there's no chain, no wave, no sound. Not faint sound, not distant sound, no sound at all, structurally, from the ground up. Now here's where it gets genuinely wild, because I want you to feel just how empty really is. On Earth, right now, in a single cubic centimeter of air around you, about the size of a sugar cube, there are roughly 25 million billion molecules, an almost unfathomable number of tiny little dominoes, packed in shoulder to shoulder, ready to knock each other over the instant something disturbs them. That's why sound travels so easily here. There's just an obscene amount of material standing by. Now go out into the space between the stars. Take that same cubic centimeter and look inside. You might find one atom, maybe none. That's not thin air. Thin air still has trillions of molecules in it. This is something else entirely. This is a void so complete that a shock wave from an explosion has nothing to grab, nothing to push, nothing to hand its energy to. There's no first domino to knock over, so the chain never even begins. Which brings up an obvious objection, and I love this part, because it's the part that keeps this whole thing honest instead of letting it feel too neatly wrapped up. If there's no sound, does that mean the explosion doesn't happen? Of course not. Something absolutely violent is still going on out there. Chemical energy or nuclear energy is still converting into blistering heat, blinding light, and debris ripping outward at incredible speed. All of that is completely real. What's missing isn't the explosion. What's missing is only the acoustic part of it, the specific conversion of that energy into a pressure wave in some surrounding medium. The explosion doesn't get quieter out there. It gets stripped of the one thing that was ever loud about it to begin with. And loud was never really a property of the fire. It was a property of the air standing around the fire. That's already strange enough to sit with for a while. But I want to go one layer deeper, because this is where I think most explanations stop, and stopping there is a mistake. We can say, sound is a pressure wave moving through a medium, and that feels like the case is closed. It isn't. That's naming the mechanism, not fully understanding it. We understand the physics of that traveling wave with total, staggering precision. We can write the equations, predict the speed, model exactly how it moves through air, water, steel, anything. But somewhere between molecules bumping into each other in a chain and the felt experience of hearing your favorite song, or someone saying your name, or the low, dreadful roar of something exploding nearby, somewhere in there, physics goes quiet, and a much harder mystery starts. Why does a mechanical vibration on a stretched membrane in your skull turn into an experience at all? Not a signal, not data, an experience, rich, textured, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrifying. Nobody fully knows. We've explained the wave. We haven't explained the hearing. And here's a version of silence that's even stranger than the one we started with. Because I don't want you to leave here thinking silence just means very far away in the void. Picture an astronaut floating right next to that same explosion, close enough to watch it in full, sickening detail. Even they hear almost nothing from it, just their own breathing, the low hum of their suit systems. Why? Because there's a medium again, a tiny sealed pocket of air, just a few inches thick, wrapped entirely around one human body. Now take that astronaut and move them 2 feet outside the suit. The instant they cross that boundary, the exact edge where the air runs out, the entire universe's worth of violence around them goes completely silent, immediately, at that precise line. Silence in space isn't distant. It isn't something that happens way out there. It's a hard physical edge, sitting right up against your own skin, right now, if you were ever unlucky enough to be on the wrong side of it. Which gets me to what I actually think the real point of all this is. And it's not really about space at all. It's tempting to say space is silent, full stop, end of story. But that sentence is doing something sneaky. It sounds like a fact about space. It's really a fact about us. Our ears are extraordinarily specific instruments, tuned through hundreds of millions of years of evolution for one exact medium, air, at one particular pressure on one particular planet. Take that medium away, and an event of unimaginable violence, stars colliding, entire worlds torn apart in an instant, produces no experience whatsoever for anyone, anywhere, unless somebody happens to be standing inside a small bubble of exactly the right stuff to carry that vibration to an eardrum built to catch it. Think about what that actually means, scaled up. Most of the universe's most dramatic moments, and there are a staggering number of them happening constantly all across the cosmos, are unfolding right now in absolute silence. Not because they're gentle, some of them are the most violent events physics knows how to produce. They're silent because almost nothing in the universe is shaped like an ear. Hearing isn't the default condition of a violent event. Hearing is a strange, local, almost accidental privilege, one tiny planet's worth of stretched membranes, wired up just right, sitting in the one place where there happens to be enough air for a chain of dominoes to fall. So the next time you see an explosion in a movie and hear that deep, satisfying boom, I want you to remember what's actually true out there. Somewhere right now, something is tearing itself apart with more violence than anything humans have ever built, releasing more energy in a second than our entire species has produced across our whole history, and it is making, in the truest physical sense, no sound at all. Not because it's quiet, because sound was never really out there to begin with. It was always something we made, together, air and ear, right here, a strange and fragile little collaboration, running on one small, wet, breathing planet in the middle of a universe that is, everywhere else, and almost always, utterly and permanently still.